It's a lovely hymn, isn't it? And we need to place it in the context of Jesus' life. This tense moment when he is facing his death. He doesn't yet know that for certain, but he is confident that as he proclaims how God's love is, the establishment are not going to put up with it, his message, or with him. That's the message that he wraps up in this story. How is God's love? And it's the story of the wedding feast, and I'll read it to you. Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them to come, but they refused. Then he sent some more servants and said, 'Tell those who have been invited that I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fatted calf have been slaughtered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.' But they paid no attention and went off, one to his field and another to his business. The rest seized his servants, ill-treated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burnt their city. Then he said to his servants, 'The wedding banquet is ready, but those I invited did not deserve to come. So go to the street corners and invite to the banquet all the people you find.' So the servants went out into the streets and gathered all the people they could find, the bad as well as the good. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. He asked, 'How did you get in here without wedding clothes, friend?' The man was speechless. Then the king told the attendants, 'Tie him hand and foot and throw him outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen.'" That's the story. And let's remember that it's not an account from the News of the World, or any other society newspaper for that matter. This is Jesus talking about big ideas. And, of course, he's casting it as the kingdom of heaven. God is the king, and the chief priests and all the people of the religious establishment are the guests who think they're the favored ones. They're the people who are invited first to the feast, but they don't want it. They don't want to come because they have the wrong idea of the nature of God's love. They think that only the good people should be there. But God is much more inclusive. So they refuse. And not only do they refuse, but they kill God's messengers. That's Jesus talking about the prophets who didn't get a good reception. And then Jesus says God goes out and invites everybody to the feast. And I particularly want to underline, as it were, the good and the bad. Have you ever felt unworthy of God's love, troubled by things that you've done that you can't somehow forget. There are one or two things I remember almost every day about which I kick myself for having done. Perhaps you're like me, perhaps you're happier. But the great thing is to know that whatever those things are, however big or little, they don't separate you from God's love. God loves you as you are. That's a huge thing to remember and hold on to. And then there's the man who doesn't want to join in. He's there, but he wants to keep himself apart from all the others. He feels different. And coming to God, when God comes to him rather, he doesn't answer. He sends God to Coventry, as it were. And if that's our attitude, then we are in the outer darkness. We have refused the reality of God's love. But we'll come back to him a bit later on. Let's hold on to the fact that God invites. And of course, first he invites the inner group, the chosen people, and then it gets bigger. But let's have a song about invitation, and the one I could think of was Come Fly With Me. It's not right, because, of course, in the song Frank Sinatra wants a girl to go off with him, whereas here God is inviting everybody into his great party. But still, it's a nice song.